Welcome to the Power of Lifting podcast. I'm Eric Cafferty, owner of the Mecca Gym. I am a strength and conditioning coach and a contest prep specialist. The focus of this podcast is to dive into the mindset and the drive of people who have done incredible things with their lives. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Power of Lifting podcast. And today you're stuck with just Hunter and I.
You know what? Sometimes I think some people need it, to be honest.
Some
Eric and Hunter time.
Eric and Hunter time. I would concur.
Yeah. I know I need it.
I don't think we're bad guys.
No, we do pretty good.
So,
We're
Hunter, what's on the agenda for today?
Well, today I think it would be kind of nice to satisfy some of your followers on the Instagram.
Oh, boy.
And talk a little bit about some abdominal strengthening and even specifically vacuums.
Yes. We did have a little Insta story
about
that was going to end up being way too long.
Right. And you didn't want to spend your whole entire day on an Instagram story.
Well, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So vacuums. Yeah. So I had a friend of mine, Nadia, reach out. She had been talking on her Instagram about utilizing vacuums as part of a training regiment.
Okay.
I think is how that started.
Sure.
So she tagged me and asked my opinion on, utilizing the vacuum for training and things like that. So ab training and just core, I guess, if you want to call it, abdominals, whatever. So you have the rectus abdominis, you have your obliques, and then you have your transverse abdominis. So those are kind of the main muscles that make up, your the lower part of your trunk, we'll call it, right? Your core. So why is this important? Well, below you have, obviously you run into the hips. You also kind of run into your pelvic floor, which is kind of the muscles that are the inner workings of the hips, keeping, little muscles that keep things stable. That's kind of the bottom of the trunk, right? And then above those muscles, you have the diaphragm, but you also have, these things called ribs. Right?
Yes.
And you have, your intercostals within those ribs, and then you get into more muscles such as like serratus muscles, and then the larger muscles that are going to move the limbs and things like that.
Right.
Well,
they're connected.
Right. So from the hips up to, your rib cage, the main thing that's supporting you is, all you have for bone there is your spine, your lumbar spine, right?
Yeah.
Lumbar spine is, as we talked with Caleb on a recent episode, is an area where you have a lot of potential injuries occur because you have less stability between where your ribs end and your hips. So your last lumbar vertebrae sits on your sacrum, which is a bone that's basically four fused vertebrae that sits within your hips. So most people, recognize that as the SI joint or the sacroiliac joint, right?
Right. Yep.
But so back to the ab or the core training aspect of it. We have multiple layers in that area, right? So we have, the rectus abdominis basically runs from, the bottom of the ribs down to your hips, essentially.
Right.
And that's going to function to flex your trunk, flex the spine, right? So any movement that you do that's like a crunch or a sit-up where you're flexing the spine,
right,
that's going to be predominantly your rectus abdominis, right?
Okay.
Now, the stipulation with that is when you're working your rectus abdominis, you want to focus on spinal flexion, quite literally spinal flexion. So if you want to know if you're flexing, in your lumbar spine or not, if the bottom of your ribs or your xiphoid process, the bottom of your sternum here, if that is getting closer to your hips, you're flexing at this in the lumbar spine. You're utilizing that rectus muscle, right? So, in the rectus abdominis, that's the bulbous, that's the six pack that you see, right? So that's what you're using to do that motion. Now, the commonly made error with doing that movement is people are actually flexing at the hip and not flexing in the lumbar spine. So there's a huge difference between hip flexion, because that's not using the rectus abdominis really hardly at all. I mean, a little bit, especially in an isometric, so I guess, but you're not really, contracting that muscle group if you're just flexing at the hip. So like in doing sit-ups, for example, if you're just, sitting up and keeping your trunk like from moving, I mean, yeah, you are engaging those abdominal muscles, but you're not shortening them at all, really, right?
So you're kind of cheating yourself.
So you're kind of just using your hip flexors.
And then they get all tight.
And then, yeah, I mean, that can create problems, but it's really, you're just not effectively training your abs is what that comes down to. So, your hip flexors, typically consist of, your psoas, and, iliacus is another hip flexor. Rectus femoris is another hip flexor. So utilizing, and even like, I guess a QL could be considered somewhat of, it's sort of borderline hip flexor, right? But it's all kind of part of that complex, right? So, that's not what you're trying to target when you're talking specifically, rectus abdominis training, or the, the six pack muscles, right? It's the kind of the muscles running just up and down between your hips and your ribs. So in order to effectively train those, you want to make sure that you are, in fact, flexing in the lumbar region of your spine, bringing your ribs down to your hips, not necessarily bringing, your torso
up
and your trunk closer to your leg, right? You want to think about it more as ribs to hips.
So that's kind of the cues to look for a little bit.
Ribs to hips.
Ribs to hips.
Okay, so that's one category. So kind of like I did mention on the Insta story briefly that ab training, we typically break up into 3 different types of movements, in different planes, right? So the spinal flexion, the rectus abdominis work, that's kind of one area, right? Especially for like, a bodybuilder that wants that bulbous six pack, right? Really creating those, deep delineation in the rectus. Heavy, weighted ab training where you're getting good flexion is key. Men's physique competitors are going to be another one. Abs are huge in that division. Or if you just want to look good on the beach, right? Like who doesn't want a six pack? The better developed your rectus is, the better your six pack will be. And you'll actually have a six pack even as you soften up a little bit. So you don't have to be shredded to have a six pack, because the muscles are so developed that you can still see delineated abs.
And that's
when you're softer.
That's what I think some people don't.
Yeah, so getting some good heavy training, or so abs are muscles just like any other muscles in the body, right? I mean, yeah, sure, certain muscle groups based on the fiber type can respond a little bit differently to rep ranges and things like that. But in general, think of training your abs like you're training a bicep somewhat, right? So, would you go and do 1,000,000 bicep curls? Sure. Might not be the most effective though. Same thing with like doing a ton of sit-ups. You're probably working the endurance of that muscle,
but not necessarily the growth.
Exactly. You may not be maximizing the amount of hypertrophy you see in that muscle group. So that's where like weighting your ab exercises can be very key, especially if you're trying to build that rectus. So in terms of rep ranges, you might want to try and weight that to stay in that optimal hypertrophy type rep range, like maybe 8 to 15 reps sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can do more, but it kind of depends on what equipment you have available, things like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So if you have weights, if you have, or just doing a movement that is difficult in the 10-ish rep range, right? Maybe not doing movements that you can do 50 of and hardly even have a burn. Like that's probably not the best use of your time unless like you're being tested on that particular movement.
That's fair.
And one area where we may use a lot of high rep ab training is like if you have to do a sit-up test for something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Then sure, you want to train for endurance in that muscle group.
Of course. Right.
But if you're going for a look, that could potentially change your approach, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, to move on to our next category of kind of ab training,
which I think this will be really good because all the stuff we've talked about previously, I think, is almost what people just assume ab are.
Yeah, so like sit-ups and things like that.
Right.
So, you want to throw in some transverse plane movements, right?
Nice.
So what that's going to do is that's going to be, the rotational muscles of your trunk, right? So that's where we bring the obliques into the equation. Those muscles run diagonally. There's multiple layers that go both directions. They kind of lay like this. And those are muscles that you use for rotation, right? Why would we want to use these? Well, athletes for one.
Oh, for sure.
If you're doing, something where you're twisting at all, any sport, right? Hockey players. Okay. We talked about hockey on this podcast a bit. I was a hockey player. Super important for hockey players to have amazingly strong obliques.
Yeah.
That's one of the muscle groups that's going to be the transfer a lot of your power for puck handling, shooting, things like that.
Sure.
Right. Tons.
I can imagine even like the change of direction and the turn of the slide. All that.
So like for sports and everything, like very, very important to do twisting style ab motions, right? So we're talking like even a Pallof press, a cable twist, a Russian twist, using a ball,
right?
You can do twisting crunches, the bicycles. There's about a bazillion different movements that you can utilize to train that rotation in your trunk. For my preference, once again, I want to do things that are effective and that I don't have to spend, tons and tons of time on.
Right.
I want to be, effective at training those muscle groups and not have it take me all day, right?
Yeah.
So doing something, again, that's weighted, like a twist with a cable, or, there's about a bazillion different variations, right? But same conversation as with rep ranges, as with the rectus training. You want to, make sure that you're working towards building those muscles in the optimal way. Do you want a more deeply cut oblique for the bodybuilding stage, things like that,
right? So a quick question too, have you ever seen, I'm sure I guarantee you've seen it, but so there's like people who stand straight up and then they have like a weight on one side and then they bend down to that side and then bend it back up. Have you seen that? Is that positive? Is that negative? What are your thoughts on that?
So the funny part about that is, you are working obliques to some extent, but like I said, they're more so used for rotation.
Okay. So if you want to hit them right, they're going to rotate.
So if you're going to be doing, that's lateral flexion of the spine.
There we go.
Okay. So look up, what muscles lateral flexion are going to be working, right? You do work obliques, you still work transverse abdominis, but you're going to be working a lot of other muscles that are spinal flexors, lateral flexors, excuse me. So it is different, right? I generally don't recommend doing that. And, so the other argument, which we'll get into with vacuums and our my third category of ab exercises, which is, the isometrics or the transverse abdomen, working the transverse abdominis.
Okay.
Because like I said, 3 kind of layers there. That, the deepest most layer is going to be that transverse abdominis.
Okay.
Which kind of is like a donut that goes around and kind of or I guess a better analogy, a weightlifting belt. It's kind of your body's natural built-in weightlifting belt.
Okay.
Right?
So, yeah.
But it's, it's like this. It goes around you, right? So, a lot of people kind of make the argument like, oh, you don't want to do the rotation, or, you don't want to do a lot of the lateral flexion and working the obliques in that manner because it makes your waist thick. And, is there some truth to that? Like, sure. Right? Sure. It's just how much, right?
Right.
So, it depends on, on this podcast, I'm sure we have a lot of listeners that are on the bodybuilding side of the house.
Right.
We have a lot of listeners that are on the side of more so strength and athletics and powerlifting, and other sports, right? So if you're purely looking at aesthetics, then I think it is somewhat just to make that argument. You don't want to do a whole lot of movements that are going to cause you to thicken those muscles,
right?
Because you want the waist to stay as thin as possible,
right?
So, like, for example, when you're standing from the front, like in a front symmetry pose, for example, that is, your shoulder to waist ratio is kind of what you're looking at there.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, you don't want to do things that are going to thicken that up. Now, should you still train the rotational muscles? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it sounds very
absolutely
just for safety and things like that.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, because that's going to allow you for better structural stability in your trunk in order to optimally train other parts of your body.
Right, without hurting yourself.
For example, doing deadlifts
right.
or squats, right? Absolutely should be included in a bodybuilder's program. And the last thing that you want to do is do those movements, but have, weaknesses on up the chain that are going to cause you to injure yourself doing those movements, because oftentimes those people that are doing those things are quite strong too.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to completely neglect training a certain part. So it's kind of a give and a take, right?
Sure.
It's not necessarily something that you're going to focus on growing, but it is something that you should maintain strength and tone in.
Got it.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
So maybe keeping the volume quite low on those muscle groups, right? So to get into the actual question, about the vacuums, training the transverse abdominis, training the muscles of the pelvic floor, even we can get into as well, and the diaphragm comes into this equation quite a bit. And whenever you're talking diaphragm, you're also going to be kind of talking intercostals as well, because when you're talking diaphragm, you're talking lungs. That's kind of why you have a diaphragm in the first place, is to help you breathe. So when you take a big breath, you inhale, what you're doing is you're contracting the muscles and shortening the muscles of the diaphragm. And what that's going to do is that's going to pull the diaphragm down, which is going to increase the intrapleural pressure. And then it will pull air. That's how you actually breathe, is you decrease that pressure to pull air into the lungs, right?
Right, yeah.
And so when you exhale, you're relaxing the diaphragm and you're letting that, air flow out, essentially, right? So you're also going to use the muscles of your intercostals typically as a natural reflex when you breathe. Now, as lifters, a lot of times we'll train to do proper bracing or utilize a Valsalva maneuver, and in that case, you're trying to not contract or utilize the muscles of the intercostals, which are between the ribs, to expand your rib cage. You're trying to hold those in an isometric as you take a big breath in, because what that big breath in is going to do is that's going to pull more air into the lungs, and then you're going to hold that air in your lungs to create that pressure and to keep that diaphragm contracted down to create more intra-abdominal pressure. By pulling the diaphragm down, you're going to increase the intra-abdominal pressure, and then you're going to wrap that transverse abdominis around, and all the other muscles of the core around, all the way around, not just your rectus, but all of those muscles around, to hold that pressure in your abdominal cavity. And that is going to help stabilize your lumbar spine for compound movements or, various other things, right? Yeah. That's bracing, right?
There you go. Yep. In a nutshell.
So in terms of a vacuum, we're actually doing the opposite of a brace.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I guess it wouldn't necessarily be the opposite, but it's just contracting those muscles differently. Because with a brace, you are still contracting those muscles.
Sure.
But what you're trying to do with a vacuum is you're trying to get the waist as little as possible. You're trying to pull that rectus in as far as possible, trying to squeeze that transverse abdominis in as far as possible. All of those muscles of the trunk, you're trying to pull in and in, right? In order to do that, and where the vacuum itself comes from is exhaling.
So you're getting all your breath out.
And you're pulling the diaphragm up as high as you can up into the rib cage. So trying to relax that up as much as possible, keeping that air and as low of volume in the lungs as possible while you're still able to breathe, of course.
Of course.
And sucking all of that in tight.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So that's kind of in a nutshell vacuum. So what that ends up looking like is, the concave, the wall of the abs going up into the rib cage. Yep. And a lot of that, it comes down to neuromuscular control. Why is that important? Well, you should practice that in order to keep that waist sucked in as tight as possible for competing, especially
because that's what you're doing up there.
Yeah.
Right?
So a vacuum is going to pull the walls of the transverse abdominis and even the obliques and rectus all in, and it's going to make the waist look small from the sides and from front to back.
Okay.
Which is
it goes all the way around.
Exactly, which is a huge advantage on stage, and it's just really cool.
Sure. Yeah.
Guys like Zach Polkinen, who we've had on here, and many know, great vacuum, right? Kaylee is great at doing a vacuum.
It's so interesting seeing her especially do that thing.
Yeah, because her waist
funky looking
disappears.
It's gone. Yeah,
it's incredible. Yeah. So it's exercising that neuromuscular drive, that abdominal control. Why is that good for other people? Like we'll make others that aren't necessarily competing do this as well. Well, you're actually strengthening by activating and sucking in. You are strengthening those muscles, and you can add in other aspects to doing the vacuum as you're doing a vacuum.
Right.
And to strengthen things like your pelvic floor, and it's just a good isometric. But what it's going to do is it's going to give you that tone in your transverse abdominis and train that so that your waist isn't just thick and out there. Many people, especially that have been heavier, they just they're like, well, I just have a gut. Well, they end up getting some distension because number one, a lot of times that happens because unhealthy diet, and they just eat too much, so they'll get bloated, or they're just constantly bloated because their digestive system is very unhappy all the time. So they get this distended belly look, even though there might not be a ton of fat there. The other thing is getting a lot of visceral fat or things like that, fat around the intestines, things like that, right? That is really bad, but that'll cause that transverse abdominis to get stretched out. We don't want that, right? Especially with our clones. We want, our waist to be nice and sucked in. We want good abdominal control. So being able to control that midsection and suck in is great. Also for pelvic floor work, right? We want to, focus on having a good, strong pelvic floor, not just for women, for dudes as well. It's going to help stability with hips, stability with your, SI joints, stability with compound movements, right? So we want to focus on, strengthening that transverse abdominis and all of those muscles to keep the core in tight.
Right.
So now that we kind of establish, the difference between what a vacuum and sucking in would be and a brace,
right.
which is very, they're kind of opposites, but not really, because you're contracting on both of them. One, you're trying to increase pressure. The other one, you're trying to decrease pressure as much as possible, right?
Yeah.
But what should be mentioned as part of this conversation is a lot of people have it confused with when they're lifting what they should be doing.
Okay.
Vacuums should not necessarily be done when you're doing other movements.
Okay.
Vacuums should be done by themselves. There's a lot of different ways you can do them. I like to try and do it laying on my back,
okay,
or like on all fours,
yeah,
or just bend kind of hunched over
hands
on my knees kind of yep. Yeah. Or just standing there as you're doing a front double bicep pose.
Yep, that's right.
When vacuums should not be done is like when you're deadlifting, when you're squatting, when you're doing any other lifting motion, because a vacuum isn't super inherently stable for your spine, which is what you want.
You're building stability, but you're not necessarily having it at the time.
Yeah, you're not and you're not going to be able to be strong in that position, really.
Well, I can't even imagine trying to do anything while I'm doing a vacuum.
Right.
I feel like I would
just a lot of
snap in
concentration.
half.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, being able to do other stuff while you are working on your vacuum can be important. Like, if you're bodybuilding, right?
Sure.
But in general, you want to, be creating more intra-abdominal pressure and bracing as you're lifting, not doing a vacuum. Right. So I just want to put that stipulation out there.
Seems pretty important for people to know.
Yeah, so a couple of different ways I like to work the transverse abdominis. Vacuum, number one, trying to pull that, diaphragm up, suck up and in, and working that abdominal control. The other thing is focusing on, a lot of people have trouble initially, like kind of feeling that, because you are building, a motor pattern essentially.
Yep.
So some ways to start, like sucking your belly button into your spine, or just, laying on the floor and trying to get as thin as possible, right? So from, if you were to look at a side angle, if you're laying down, just trying to suck your belly as close down to the floor as you possibly can, and try and start to build that control, you know?
Right, because it's all about control. That's the point of all of this, to have control.
And we go as far as with like, say competitors that are getting close to the show, eliminating a lot of food volume, right? Which, can drive people nuts because they're starving from a caloric deficit, and some, a lot of volume of food is one thing that keeps them sane. Well, if you want your midsection to be as tight as possible, you need to keep the volume of food in your stomach and in your intestines as low as possible all the time.
Right.
So we will, purposefully, make sure that obviously they're still getting in adequate fiber, but their volume of food is staying pretty low, relatively speaking. And, really important to make sure that they're not intaking anything that's going to be causing them to bloat or things like that, because that's all going to affect how lax those muscles are. So
right on. Well, there you go, folks. There it is. There's the answer for you.
Lots of blah blah blah.
Lots of blah blah blah. Very information.
That would have been I don't even know. That would have been a 30-minute long Insta story.
That's a 30 minute, right.
So you're welcome, everybody, for not posting that on Insta stories.
Just blowing up the Insta stories. Having to click 1,000 times.
I guess they can skip through. They'd just go to next.
They would just go to next, but then it would still be there for 24 hours. You would never leave their feed.
That's right.
Always Eric's face, just chilling right at the top.
Right. As it should be.
As it should be, right. If you want to learn and be motivated. All right, here's kind of the thought that we had to go with the little time that we've got left here. We thought we would look up the top influencers, fitness influencers on Instagram. And this is a fun topic because we've talked about this before, how there's legitimate people out there, there's people that kind of know what they're doing, and there's complete buffoons.
Oh, man.
And so you got every range. And it kind of fun. What's interesting, too, is I'm doing this research, and you look up just like a simple top influencers on Instagram 2021, fitness influencers 2021.
Yes.
And there's
The
like
Rock
50 different points. No, but there's some interesting fellas that I'm going to bring up.
Okay.
At least not on the list that I found.
The Rock is, I do like The Rock as far as a follow goes.
He's a good
for fitness stuff.
Yeah.
You know, some of the other stuff, you know, I could do without
the Hollywood stuff.
The Hollywoods, the energy drink stuff and the tequila stuff. But hey, the man's got to make a living, I suppose.
The man's doing it.
But his fitness stuff, he's actually super hardcore.
He really is, and
it's
fun to always see that.
And respect to him for that. Yeah,
for sure. Anyway, so looking at this, it's interesting that you pull up that search phrase, and then you get 100 different lists, and they're all different because people are basing it either off of amount of followers.
Was I on that list?
Or you should be on this list. We'll make you a list, Eric.
Thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes me feel good.
And then eventually you'll be on a list.
Right.
I need to look at more lists. I wasn't able to get through a ton. But then there's ones that like legitimately have like good engagement on their posts and stuff like that. So anyway, I feel like we should look up a few. So disclaimer, as anyone probably could know, you are going to find a tremendous amount of women in little clothing when you look at this. For fitness influencers.
You know what? That's weird. I never would have guessed.
You never would have guessed it, but it's there. So there's kind of a thing for you. But so you got the mix of those people, but I think we go a little bit deeper into this. So there's a lady on here. I don't know if you want to look them up on your phone.
Okay.
Kind of react to their pages.
All right.
But this gal's name is Julia Vanderdrift.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's got a Julia Vanderdrift. What's her? I gotta see.
Oh, I don't. So it's that right there.
Okay. Oh yeah, that was it. Okay.
Now, she's not even coming up. Maybe she shouldn't be on this list.
Let me see that again.
Yeah, you got it. Quite the name.
Okay. Oh, how is she on that list? She's got less followers than me.
Well, I hate to tell you, but she's on the list.
This is bull honky.
So that's why I kind of wanted to bring her up, because that's exactly what I thought too. What do you think she brings? Because people could, we'll tag these people, bring it up, but it shows that she's kind of a Pilates master. She's a certified Pilates.
Oh, there we go. There's a place for Pilates.
There's a place for Pilates for sure.
Yeah, let's pull up the first thing she's got here. Oh yeah, she's definitely doing like some side bends here.
Oh yeah, got a little music.
Side plank series.
Right. Well, that looks.
So speaking of ab training, yeah, Pilates is great for that.
Pilates.
I mean, and great for picking up ladies, of course.
Right.
Yeah, no, she looks like a pretty basic Pilates gal to me. I can't really talk too much trash.
Right.
It doesn't look like she's selling snake oil or anything.
That's good. All right, I got another guy for you.
Yeah, she's doing some pretty simple. Definitely not a weight trainer.
Yeah. She
actually, props to her though. She's got some amazing looking food on here.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah, what, dude? Spicy vodka pasta recipe. This looks amazing. I love vodka. Good vodka sauce.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
dude. You know what? I'm not gonna talk too much trash on her. She's posted some great food.
Well, we found a good one. That's always good to hear.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Okay, this guy also has a small amount of followers, but he's on here.
What list did you find?
Burrow 247. We'll get to people with higher followers, but
okay.
I thought these people were fun. Look up this guy next.
Benny. Okay. Oh, this guy's a NASM certified trainer.
Oh, okay.
Where did you find this list, bro?
Google.
Oh my gosh.
Google.
Oh, here he is posting with good old Hyde Hidetada Yamagishi in Powerhouse in Vegas. I've been there.
Yep.
Baller.
So you seem like a guy that posts a lot of like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this.
He says, stop trying to get fit and focus on getting fitter. That's kind of interesting. I would say that's not far off. You should definitely just focus on getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so his most recent, I'm not pro or anti-stretching, but the industry needs to shift its perspective on it as a solution. If a joint can't achieve a range of motion or position, their action should be why, and not, I'm sure forcing it there will fix it. The only thing that's stretching is logic. Yeah, I don't know. I don't find much value in that, to be honest. Let's see what else he's got. This is a typical cop out of somebody who doesn't have good genetics. Getting rich isn't easy, but it's easier if you inherit a few million to start with.
Yeah.
Getting fit isn't easy, but it's easier if you inherit elite physical genetics.
Nah.
Not all six-packs require equal creation. Be skeptical taking advice from experts who had it easier. I mean, who's to say somebody wants a six-pack, bro?
Right. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. I mean,
all right. Let's move on to this guy.
Anyway.
Because this guy's super popular, and in my opinion, I never really understood why.
Okay. AP. Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. Ooh, 1.3 million. Okay. Cool. I make fitness easy to understand. All right.
His page seems to just be a bunch of graphics
kind
of looking deal.
His first, okay, so this throws me off. Custom plans. What is this? Easy use. Oh, he's selling. Selling plans. Okay. Swipe up. Customized workout routines. Video tutorials. Okay. Got it. Video library. Drink this, not this. Oh, iced coffee with a splash of coconut milk. Okay, so sure, I don't disagree with that. Oh yeah, delineating. Oh hey, speaking of ab training, he just posted a little guide. Yeah, I mean this guy's. I mean I think knowledge level pretty basic.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like he's competed in bodybuilding. That's cool. He got in pretty good shape there.
Nice.
Respectable. No shave November. Okay. I'm trying to find something that I really disagree with.
Right. So that list was very much like these people will educate you properly. It's not necessarily the...
No.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I mean... Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have a huge disagreement with what he's posting. He has a post on alcohol expectation. I just ruined all of my gains. Reality, not ideal, but okay in moderation. I don't disagree with that.
Don't disagree with that, right? We've talked about that.
Don't disagree
multiple times.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. So now these people we got next have the beefy followers.
Okay.
And so we're gonna, but they're also the ones that seem to be bodybuilders and for the gram, as you would say.
Oh yeah.
So here's this. She's at the top of our list.
Jen Selter. Okay. All right. Dang, dude. 12 million followers.
Yeah.
Whew. All right. Oh yeah, I'm into this. All the ass shots. Let's do it. Heck yeah.
Yep.
Hey,
you'll find a lot of that. That's where all the followers are.
If you can get 12 million followers posting pictures of you doing weird stuff in hardly any clothes, good on ya.
Good on you.
Dude, I don't know. When I pose like that on the beach, I don't get 400,000 views. She's literally upside down in New York. Okay, that's cool. I guess I do understand how somebody like this gets all the follows, but like
you're not really seeing the educational.
Dude, there's not really. I mean, the value is in some scantily clad chick.
Right.
I mean, oh man, yeah. I mean, there's a whole lot of booty on here. Productive morning tips. Here we go. Make your coffee from bed. What? Dude, she just sold me on this coffee machine.
From bed?
Spin coffee machine. So you brew from your, like, it's an app on your phone.
Oh.
Dude, that's badass.
That's actually pretty cool.
That is awesome. And then, of course, in the video, she's like in a thong and, you know, scantily clad workout clothing.
Right, of course.
Okay, well,
There you go.
I might have to buy one of those coffee machines.
There you go. At least her affiliate marketing is working.
Yeah, her marketing worked. All right.
All right, here's a guy. I think I've kind of seen some stuff about him. I don't know if you...
Oh, the Bradley Martin.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Do you know that guy much?
I don't know him personally. I mean, I've obviously heard of him. He actually has a gym in...
he's got a gym?
Yeah, Zoo Culture, and I think it's L.A. area. I wonder how they did through COVID. Probably shitty.
Yeah. In LA area?
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, poor guy. No, I think that he's pretty entertaining for sure. As far as quality fitness advice, it probably involves a needle. But I mean,
yeah.
But no, he seems like an entertaining dude. I heard the gym is kind of a shanty though. I was talking to somebody about the Zoo Culture. I can't remember where I was or who I was talking to, but they said it was not the cleanest. But they've got good equipment. He's a strong dude. I'll give him that.
Well,
he's posted videos of him lifting buckets of weights, man,
and doing it in an interesting fashion.
And yeah. So I mean, I think, I don't know if I follow him. I know I used to. I may have unfollowed. I'm not gonna lie, but
that's fair.
Yeah.
All right, then the next guy on this list, his name's Joe Wicks. He's the body coach.
The body coach.
Have you seen the body coach before?
Dude, no.
Looks like a lot of food. It looks like
4 million. I can't get on board with his haircut. That's for sure.
It's pretty up there.
The body coach app. Oh, he posted some great food.
Yeah, he got some more food on there.
Oh, good. Crispy Cajun chicken burger. Okay. Let's see what kind of advice this guy gives. Dude, he's got some good, tasty-looking food on here. Got a cute-looking family. Dude, a lot of food. Oh, he's one of the 30-minute live hit boost your winter motivation. Yeah, so this is a very general fitness. Yeah. I think that's something that, oh my gosh, the Burpee Bears. He wrote a book called The Burpee Bears. I might have to get that.
Sounds like a children's
It's
book.
A children's picture
book. Oh, it is?
Book. Yeah,
yes.
Look at this.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
okay.
awesome.
That's not bad.
Very general fitness type stuff. You know, and that's fine. I mean, that's something that, you know, at the Mecca, we are trying to get people more onto the level of serious fitness because it is a serious thing. And for people that are just doing the 30-minute HIIT workouts and you know, the stuff like that's you know, very I don't know what you want to call it, like basic mainstream, like just do a little HIIT workout, you know, get a little sweat, and like that's not going to really get you results, you know, for most people.
Right. You
so
kind of
people
feel like getting sweaty.
Yeah. So people that promote stuff like that, it's like, it's not going to actually change your body. You know what I mean? Now, I'm definitely not against people, you know, speaking good things about, you know, just
good health,
creating healthy habits. And like, to his credit, you know, he actually posts like some awesome looking food. I like fitness people that post like healthy food ideas. You know, I think that's
helpful.
That's quality, because, you know, it doesn't take a PhD in nutrition to come up with healthy food ideas. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, this tastes good and it's not super high in calories. Try it out. You might like it. Hey, cool. Right?
Yeah.
So good on him, but yeah, don't get sucked into the 30-minute HIIT workouts.
It's not going to be
garbage.
The ones that solve all.
That's garbage.
All right, what I found hilarious, this is the last gentleman that we'll talk about. He was on the top 10 list for the best fitness influencers on Instagram.
Oh, God.
And his name is Eddie Hall.
Oh, yes. Dude.
The strong man.
Eddie Hall.
Who has lost a tremendous amount of weight.
He has, and he's in a Speedo. Yeah. Dude, I think Eddie Hall would be an absolute freaking hoot to sit in a room with / talk trash to.
Yeah.
He actually seems like he has a really good sense of humor.
Yep.
You know, somebody that's like very Eddie Hall-esque, speaking of strongman, is good old Robert Oberst. Maybe we should try and link up with him on here. He's a good dude.
We should.
Yeah, the strongman guys are quite the entertaining crowd. And I actually find Eddie Hall and...
There's Robert.
Oh, yeah, there's Robert.
Yeah, that's an entertaining picture.
Oh, yeah. I find the strongman crowd a very entertaining bunch, especially the ongoing feud between what's his name, Halfthor and Eddie Hall. Yeah. I find that hysterical.
It is quite amusing
because they were gonna box, right, at some point.
Yeah, well, and then Eddie tore his bicep.
Oh, that's right.
And so now it's rescheduled.
Oh,
so they're still just talking trash and trying to sell this thing.
Oh, it's so good.
I mean, to their credit, they have transformed their bodies comparatively too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Eddie Hall still looks like a rhinoceros.
He's just thick. He's so wide.
Just a massive human.
His abs. Speaking of abs, as we talked about, it's like a wall. It's a literal small wall.
It is. Yep. And then you've got Halfthor, who's like, gosh, how tall is he?
He's 6'10".
He's 6'10".
6'9", 6'10", yeah.
Jeepers.
Yeah, he's huge.
He looks good.
Yeah, he does. He's got nice symmetry.
Yeah, he looks damn good. Like, for as much weight as he carried around for a while, like, his waist isn't as thick as, like, Eddie's, for example.
Right.
But good Lord, that's a large man. Yep. And pictures of him and his wife, I'm like, dude, you're gonna roll over in bed and smush her.
No, that is incredible.
She's like half of him,
maybe even a quarter when you talk about total
weight
units.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. She's probably like $120, maybe. He's like, what is he down to now?
I don't know.
But he was like 400 something pounds.
Oh yeah, easy. Not mid fours, but yeah, around 4.
But yeah, like I was like, 420 or something like that.
Sheesh.
Which, I mean,
so much weight.
Good for him for dropping all that weight because, fun fact, that's called a heart attack waiting to happen.
Right. And I think that Eddie, initially, before even the boxing started, he's thought, I got to change my body.
Yeah, and it's a lot of those guys. You just can't maintain that amount of size. Like, your heart's just going to quit.
Right.
I mean... Right. Talk to any we should get Noonan on here to talk about that, cardiologist. But like what your heart has to do to support that much body, like you're just not. I mean, look at like a Mastiff or a Great Dane, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they straight up just don't live as long because their
heart just
huge.
Yeah. They're huge.
Yeah, because they're huge, right? So, I mean, there is something to be said about being a more normal-sized human that is healthy. All the body systems work more effectively. But, I mean, those dudes are just an absolute spectacle. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the pro, IFBB pro bodybuilders. Yep. I mean, just an absolute spectacle.
Yeah, and it's true.
It's, larger than life. Like, Jay, hopefully we'll get Big Jay Cutler on the podcast at some point. Yeah. But the dude, still... after being retired from bodybuilding for several years now, he's still, God, what is he like? He stepped on the scale at weigh-ins here and he was like 246.
Well, was he really?
Yeah, and I was like, damn. And you're like, he's still in shape. Like he's, obviously not contest race shape, but like
he's killing it.
Homeboy is lean.
Mm-hmm. There, I saw this like comparison photo for his side tricep. And from like when he was competing and then recently, and it looked great.
Yeah, he's a freak. Yeah. He is a freak. Yeah. But it's like crazy, that it's like, dude, you're 246 and still pretty dang ripped and like jacked. And then it's hard to imagine that he was like 280 on stage, bro. Like between 260 and 280 shredded on stage. Yeah. Holy crap. Holy crap!
That's a lot of muscle. Very
good follows. Follows to be had.
Take. I think be cautious, folks, when you're looking at this, because you can find people who look good, but that's all they're posting. It's very superficial. Then you got some educational stuff, and then you got stuff who really know what they're talking about. So.
Yeah, I don't fault people. I would rather, follow somebody that's just nice to look at than somebody that posts a bunch of BS snake oil sales. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like,
for sure.
I guess there's nothing wrong with posting your body, right?
No. If you're proud of what you've done.
Hey, you know what? If it supports the OnlyFans, whatever.
Good old OnlyFans.
Can't knock it. Can't knock it.
Can't knock it. Right. Well, thanks, Eric. Appreciate your wisdom as always, especially with the abs. People listen to that. It's very informative. And then let us know who you're following on the gram. Maybe we'll get another round of this through here. And
yeah, I think we should definitely do a survey of the people who's the most obnoxious fitness influencer.
There we go.
That would be good.
Yeah.
There is some dude, oh gosh, I can't remember his name, that posts about how like squatting to like 90 degrees at the knee is optimal. And like posts he like, you know, works with these like NFL guys and stuff like that. And I just know this because Lane has torn this guy a new behind.
Yeah, sure.
Lane Norton, because that's what he does.
Another good follow.
Definitely entertaining. But yeah, Lane's a good dude, and he just doesn't like when people are, you know, so far off the grid with just like, not just like, hey, I kind of like, this is kind of what I believe to go along with the research. Like, you know, sure, like I've talked about like with people like Gethin's like, you know, he kind of goes above and beyond what's like, you know,
pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, he's pushing the boundaries, but you know, he uses science to, you know, he's trying to navigate what's optimal and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
Respect to him for that. Some of the stuff he does, not a lot of evidence behind it, but if he feels a benefit and he's testing things on himself and he sees benefit, then dude, more power to you.
Absolutely.
Good. Then more research needs to be done, right?
Right.
So that's one thing. If you're like, hey, more, I think, you know, there's inconclusive research in this area or whatever, right?
Right.
And so you're kind of going off and experimenting. Good. Cool. I'm for it, right? I might not be doing coffee enemas, but hey, if it helps, then I'll take your word for it.
And I would like to hear your stories. Yeah,
yes.
for sure.
But in terms, like some people, there's blatantly like go like far left field away from like we have some fairly conclusive evidence that this is what's effective.
Right.
And you're basically saying that, nope, all that research is trash.
Right.
I think it's my way. And it's like, well, I mean, there's a lot of studies that point to full range of motion being the most effective. So 90-degree squats, buddy. I mean, maybe if you had some, you know, joint complication or
there's a place for things.
Yes.
When it comes to the research backed, you can't just screw it.
Yeah, you can't just discard hard evidence, right? It's like, you know, it's like coming to a crime scene and saying like, oh, you know, this guy's semen was definitely found at the crime, and it's like, we're not going to look at semen.
He wasn't there.
Yeah, it's like, well,
he was there at one point.
Sorry, that was a horrible example.
That was straight like mastermind or whatever that thing is called. Criminal Minds.
Yeah. Oh, but anyway, people that just throw out and disregard evidence, that's like, it's so bad.
It is.
Medical medium is another one. Oh, dude.
We've talked about him before. Yeah.
Oh, my God. I just want to
get his 4-book bundle.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
celery juice will increase your lifespan.
Oh, yeah. Just celery juice just fixes everything.
Fixes it all. Anyway, good stuff.
Fixes it all.
Right on.
All right. Well,
thank you.
This has been fun. We should do this again next week, actually.
Well, you know what? We should. I think we should put it in the books.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We have more awesome guests lined up, so you don't get stuck just listening to Hunter and I banter.
Right.
But it's been fun. I appreciate all the listens. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for joining us on the Power of Lifting podcast. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. For more content like this, follow Eric Cafferty and the Mecca Gym on all social media platforms.